Page 151 is Gimel. So the last point, the point of the Maamar is Yehei Shmei Rabba, namely there is Shmei, his name, and the Shmei Rabba. Shmei is Malchus of Atzilus, which is the governing expression of Hashem, which governing and creating force of Hashem, invested in creation, which, as Moishe Rabbeinu, as Hashem says, not till where, how far will they continue to provoke me? This 10th sin has blemished all 10 investors, all 10 spheres within Malchus. So the solution is to draw on the level of the great name, and Shmei Rabbah, to draw that down into the world. In fact, that's the whole purpose of creation, that Shmei Rabbah be drawn into the world. And the Maamar explained at length, that means that the level of absolute unity that is manifest or expressed at the level of Shmei Rabbah, as he explained, Hu Ushmai, the Etzem Ha'ir, the Spashtus Ha'ir, without repeating that detail, but just the general idea of that expression of God is thoroughly united with him, no sense of separation. It's all him, that truth be expressed, La'olam, La'olam Be'almaya Yisbarech. As we explained yesterday, Yisbarech means drawing it down and diffused throughout all of creation. So now, Bira Inyan, further detail in appreciating the Hamshacha of Shmei Rabbah into creation. Bir Inyan Hamshacha Shmei HaGodel, to appreciate further what a Jew achieves through answering Yehei Shmei Rabbah with all of his koyach. Again, it doesn't just mean that narrow. It represents all of Avodah. To understand that first, we first need to appreciate Hishtalshalos as it is naturally. And then, notwithstanding the great revelation of godliness that Hishtalshalos naturally expresses, once we appreciate that, we'll appreciate even further what's achieved through drawing down Shmei Rabbah, his great name. Diniksiv, the pasuk says, Marabba Masecha Hashem, how great, how manifold are your works, O Hashem. This refers to all of Hishtalshalos, from Bria down. It's all called God's works or actions. So now the Maamar zeroes in and appreciating what is the faculty of action. Understand why the pasuk says, how great are your works, your deeds, by understanding deed, action within us. In as much that, of course, we're made in the image of Hashem. That's the whole point of it. And that action is the lowest faculty of the person, the human being. Lower even than the faculty of speech. As he goes on to elaborate and explain now. Even on the one hand, speech, its speech is already for the other. You don't need words or speech if you're alone, unless you talk to yourself. But it's required only for somebody else, which means to say that it's extraneous to the very body, the spiritual body of the person. Still, speech is not something that's entirely divorced from the person, only something like clothing that you put on, even though it is called a garment. You put only, why do you wear clothing? To engage the world, weather, people, cold, warm. But it's not merely something by which we relate to others. Speech is connected to the person himself, meaning to say expressive in some way of the human being himself. As he goes on to illustrate. First of all, the listener can only grasp it with hearing. You can't touch it. So it's not very corporeal. It's still somewhat spiritual. And furthermore, who can understand what you're saying? Someone who's on your level. If talk to an animal, he doesn't get the words, he gets the sense, but he's not going to get the words per se. So all to say that even though speech on the one hand is external, it's not entirely external. It is expressive somewhat of the sophistication of the human being, of course. But we talk about action, to actually perform a physical deed. This is drawn and grasped or taken through the faculty of touch. It's very corporeal, very physical. So actions are very external and not expressive of the person himself. Animals can act. Action is not only expressed to some other, like words are. Nivla means other than me. Action can affect a world outside of me that's completely, nifred means distinct and separate from my world. Speech can only relate to people in my orbit, human beings like me, who can hear and understand and interpret my language. But actions, you can make that on a stone, on a physical object, and walk away, and your act remains. So it's extremely external, not expressive of the human being per se. That's what speech is. And the reason why action can reach so far, so outside of me, that's because the reason that action can descend so far that I can leave my mark on an inanimate object. The point is that looking at the faculty of action, not just its result. Its result is leaving a mark on a world completely outside my world. Why is that? Because the faculty, even as exists within me, even before I express it, and it comes down in the physical act, to begin with, this faculty, this ability to act, is very removed from the spiritual body, the seichel, the midas, that which makes up the human being, the body of the human being. The Rambam writes in his work, Shemone Prakim, it's called 8 chapters. He identifies the 7, if I'm not mistaken there, 7 levels to the human being. And he says that the faculty of action, action is not an expression, as he goes on to say, from it's not the direct expression of intellect, but action is, now, I think the literal translation would be reactionary. It's a response to the physical world outside of the person. Whatever. Exactly. That's what mis'oida means. But its action is not a direct flow. There's no direct connection between an act and necessarily the inner part of the person that's his seichel. So in other words, he's saying that the faculty of action is a very external part of the person, and it's all about engagement to the world outside of me. And by that we mean inanimate levels of existence that are totally far lower than the world of the human being. That's why, since the faculty within the person is external, therefore it's able to affect the world which is removed from the person himself. Is that clear? Now, what's the whole point? Point is that the pasuk describes that you how did Hashem create? You made it all. That all of creation is the expression of your divine faculty of action, which is saying what? That notwithstanding the extraordinary creation, Bri Yitzirasi, the Malachim, in our world, the universe, it's an incredible place. Nonetheless, what's being conveyed is that Hashem brings it into being from the most marginal external expression of him. That's what he's trying. That's what he's saying here. Translating it back. Now, translating back the parallel of the faculty of action for the human being, which is very external and marginal, relative to the self of the person. Likewise, that the whole creation of the worlds of Brit Sirasiem, Dugmas HaMaisa, they're analogous to action. Nivdal v'nifred. Two things he's implying. It's creating something separate, not expressive of the person, like an inanimate object, and it's created as a result of a very external faculty of the person. Likewise, L'mayla Hashem. Behind this, he goes on to say, the divine energy that's drawn into creation, bringing it into being, that comes from Malchus. So it's in such a way, a new point is being added over here, a nuance here. In such a way that the divine energy is not felt by creation. In the same way that this divine energy to begin with is separate from the person, actions are expressive of a human being, that he can move, he can touch, he can make a mark on something. So the faculty of action is removed from him. Therefore, when it's expressed, it's removed also from that which he does the act on. The act to which the action, the thing upon which the action impression or brought into being in this case, doesn't feel the creative force that brings it into action. Let's go further a little bit. Again, this divine energy that's invested in them from Malchus, which is the creative word of God, it's removed from them, completely unaware that they're being talked or brought, now we're talking about the faculty of action, brought into existence. So we're saying two things. To begin with, this koyach, to begin with the Hashem, is far removed from God himself. It's a most negligible output of Hashem. And moreover, the result of it, having created Biyah does not feel at all this creative force. It's also removed from them. So this notion of removal is in two areas, and they're connected. It's removed from the creator, and the created being doesn't feel. It's removed from the creative force, once expressed, doesn't feel that the creator is creating him. Doesn't feel the force. Creation is here, I'm here. No sense of it. I came into being. No sense of the works of God, made by God. We don't feel that we're Ma'aseh Hashem without Avodah. The natural feeling is feeling of separation. So what the Maimon is saying is two things, and they're one and the same thing. One is a result of the other, because, in simple language, because Hashem was metzamtzem himself so greatly to produce creation, such that the creative force is a mere reflection and glimmer of his presence in a very external way. So because he was metzamtzem himself in creating it, the result is that the created being that's created from that does not feel, because of the tzimtzum, does not feel that there's a creator creating him. No, doesn't even feel this ha'orah. And then trace it back, and then realize that the ha'orah comes from, and then appreciate the creator. So the net result is this separation. Separation A, metaphorically, Hashem, the power to create, is far removed, like the power of action for the person, from the body of God, as it were. And as a result of that, the Biyah that comes into existence as a result of this great tzimtzum does not feel this creative force at all. It comes to them removed from their world of experience. Creation does not feel the creative force. more detail now. The Avshi is but how is it the creation shouldn't feel the creative force when the creative force is intimately invested every moment, bring it into being? Bis labshus or bis achdos. Creation is in such a way that God is invested in creation and united with it. It's not like, creation doesn't come directly from God's will. God could do anything. I want creation. Boom. Creation comes into being with all of its incredible complexity and levels and so on. Hashem didn't choose to do it that way because there's no traceable relationship between the properties of creation and the creator. And God wants a relationship that we discover through our Avodah. So what did Hashem do? Hashem creates creation, again, and manifests the 10 attributes so that every creation, its properties and qualities, the way it behaves is a result of a unique koyach eliki invested in it. That's we're learning in Tanya, all of these words, in combination of words, that is a creative force that are responsible for the myriad components that make up existence. So the Rebbe is asking now, it's a very intimate involvement. Not just I will and then boom, miraculously, which God can do anything, creation comes. It doesn't come directly from the Ratzon. The Ratzon starts the whole process, but the Ratzon is invested in, as we were learning before. First it was Sfiris ein ketz. That's not the end result. Then as a Sfiris, Aliyas Ratzon. And it goes through a whole process of 10 Sfiris and then endless gradations and levels, etc. Mazel. We looked in the previous mind, which we're going to meet in again. Every object has its own mazel, which means that the particular divine force invested in it, responsible for the properties of that thing. 5 days, the way it does it, it's because it goes up and it's hot, and it's because Gevura is invested in fire. Water behaves the way it does, it comes down and it gives life, and it's transparent and it's still and it's cold. All of the properties of water and many more is because of they're all reflections of chesed. So the Rebbe is asking, how can we not feel the creation, the creative force, since it's so intimately invested in every property of creation? Answer. Question again. Because we just said moments ago that it comes by Havdalah. The reality is it's totally lost in us. We don't feel at all the creative force because it's his action. But now he's asking, how can we not feel something so intimately involved in every detail of existence? Again, even though creation is not, again, this disconnected, disembodied will, infinite will, and creation comes. Not so. It's bislabshus, so bisachtos. God's involved and invested and manifests himself in all of these different ways. So much so that what is the true identity of every creation? And by that, we mean, let me elaborate. There's 2 things to every creation. There's the fact that it exists, and then there's what exists. And the fact that it exists is common to all things. And it's so big a miracle for God to create the sun than to create a sand, a grain of sand. To bring something into nothing, if you can do that, it's completely a person can't do this. But to create something out of nothing, that's something, no matter what it is, it's the same miracle. As we're learning now in Tanya, that's Shem Havaya. The part of the creative process is Shem Elikim, which means all of these attributes. And Shem Elikim is responsible for not merely, its primary role is what the creation is. Chesed, a Gevura thing, a Chesed thing, and the endless permutations and combinations. So, net result is that the Koyach Eliki is invested in creation in a very intimate way, bringing it into being every second, and much more than that, bislabshus, bringing into being what? This particular property of the universe. And its behavior and its level and its appearance and every property that it has is all of a consequence of a unique individual investure of Hashem, a unique property of God, a unique manifestation of God producing these particular properties. So how can we not feel the bittul? This is really the question of Tanya Perek Gimel. Forever, O God, your word that you said, let there be a heaven, is standing there in heaven. And again, the Chiddush of Baal Shem Tov, really that brings out is the slapshus component. Not just God willed creation to being, boom, it's there. It's the intimate, ongoing relationship down to the minutest minutiae detail of every aspect of creation. Every detail, every property that we are discovering more and more in science behaves the way it does because of a unique koyach halakhi. So how is it that we can't feel this? What do you mean it becomes separate from the creation? How can the creation not feel something so intimately involved and bring it into being? On its level, coming down to its level. Answer. This is what the point that we're learning in Tanya. This is Havaya Olikim. If we can't understand creation, the Alteba's answer. What's Alteba's answer in Tanya? The same way that we cannot understand. The same way that we can't understand creation. We can say the words, something out of nothing. We can't even imagine it. You can't imagine something out of nothing because you can't imagine nothing. As soon as you imagine, it's something. So in the same way that Hashem creates out of nothingness, and that's because only God can do, the same way the Tzimtzum is able to conceal himself and we don't feel it. The truth is, it's incomprehensible. The pat answer, why don't we feel? Because God hides himself. He hides himself behind what? I can hide myself from you because I can put this in front of my face. This isn't me, this isn't you, so you don't see me. But there's nothing God can hide behind because everything that exists, he's bringing into being yesh ma'ayin. So how could we not feel it? He's can't hide behind anything. There's nothing outside of him. The answer is, just like Godel, his pashtus, his power to create is beyond, is infinite. His power to conceal is also infinite, beyond our understanding. How can simultaneously be intimately involved in creating not just the existence, but the properties of each thing, and at the same time, completely concealed, we don't feel it. But Hashem conceals himself till the world appears in its own experience as something separate. All to say, this is all like action. We can leave our mark on something completely separate from us. Now the reason, this is what he's explaining really the nuance of the Tzimtzum and how this works. The creative force of Malchus, Malchus itself, Kavayochel, emerges as Hashem manifests it. It too, in its world, is a koyach nivdol, non-expressive per se. The word, the creative force of God, is non-expressive of the Eibishter himself in simple language. Atzilus, which means to say, this will help us understand. Hashem is not a creator. As incredible as creation is, it's not what he is. He's not, again, this divine, the artist. The artist is, when he expresses himself, is going to produce this beautiful piece of art. He's hardwired, that's who he is. Hashem is not a creator fundamentally. It's a decision to become a creator. It's totally beyond creation. It's a koyach nivdol. Something he chose to do. But it's really separate in terms of expression of him, completely removed from the true atmos, which is totally beyond the role of creator. So in other words, the following statement is not true. God is a creator. Not true. God's the creator, true. Now, aside from the implication that God's a creator means there could be others, aside from that, a creator means that's what he does for a living. That's what he does. He creates because he's a creator. Not true. Atzmos Mohus is not a creator. The whole decision to create is inexplicable. Why did you choose to become a creator? And why did you want to do it? There's no answer to any of these things. Without repeating, we discussed this previously. You cannot answer why, because there's no question why. Why does God exist? No, there's no answer because there's no question. What you do have to ask is, what do you want? Oh, you told us, then you have a million whys. Since you said you want how does this fit in? Why do you do this? How does this? A million questions then are valid after Torah's Emes reveals what the purpose is. How does this fit in? We have answers, some we don't have answers. Why do you do this? Your purpose is so why do you do this? A lot of answers we have, a lot of answers we don't have. But at any rate, that's all after the articulated desire, what he wants. But why? No reason. Like God exists for no reason. His decision to become a creator and create ultimately a tachten, I want to have a dir, there's no reason for it. So it's a koyach nivdal. This malchus, which is the creative force, malchus, it's the word of Hashem, but the action of God. It's a koyach nivdal, doesn't tell you anything about who God is. Because it tells you nothing who God is, other than God's decision to express himself that way, but now the creative power itself does not express who he is in any way. So it's a koyach nivdal, therefore it produces a creation that doesn't feel, never mind the essence, doesn't even produce the it doesn't even feel the creative force. It doesn't even feel God as creator. Now you had something over here. This requires a lot of elaboration, because everything I just said till now was, the downside of Malchus. God choosing to become a governor, a creator, to have a kingdom and want to be a king. Total and absolute descent from his essential state. But now he's saying another nuance here, which we'll leave unaddressed, but what this means is this, that paradoxically, Malchus, which is on the one hand the lowest of all the attributes, and it's a final, creative force, it has a property of transcendence that the other spheres don't have. And transcendence means removed. That's the upside of Malchus. I'm not going to go into this. I'll just leave this a little bit unaddressed. It would take a lot of time and so on, and the Maimon doesn't elaborate, so we'll leave it. It's not just as compared to the other midas in Atzilus even. Shagam b'yisib Atzilus, how do you b'chinas hisnasus? It's a paradox. It's the lowest attribute, and yet latent in Malchus is this true transcendence that Chachma and Binda and Chesed and Gvura don't express. It's the endless paradox. The dafka in the lowest level, the most external, that's where the essence resides. At any rate, the conclusion is all this is this. So therefore, the bottom line is that the creative force, which comes from Malchus, which is drawn into and is responsible for Biyah, it's concealed, to bring into existence and to animate, to energize us in the creations, that they should appear in their own estimation, their own experience as being separate from Hashem. And that's exactly what the faculty of action is. Since within the person, the faculty to act is far removed and separate from his body, the self, the true self. That's why it can reach so far and to a world totally outside of him and affect the inanimate world. Conclusion of all of this is, creation is a very impressive thing. Bri Yitzir Asiyah. And we're just being told right now, quite simply, that it's created with the most external expression of Balikus. Koyach HaMaisa. And this koyach is not even felt by creation. So far. And furthermore, never mind Malchus. Let's go back even to the So the very first Sfira Chachma, the truth is that the source of Malchus is rooted in Chachma, the depth of Chachma. The father is the foundation of the daughter. The father is Chachma and the daughter is Malchus. So even Chachma, never mind God's word, God's action, but even God's Kavayachal wisdom is Chachma, the B'chinas Tasiyah. God is not this wise, again, intelligent, divine, super intelligent, divine being. He's not this super intelligent being. Even Chachma is this tremendous Yidid. It's also like Asiyah, God's decision to become this divinely, infinitely wise being. That doesn't define him. That's Asiyah. That too is a tremendous ascent. All of them you made with Chachma, and implied there is that even Chachma itself is also analogous to an act, a very external Koyach of Hashem. Question. Sharei, we're going to just say the words right now, and we'll elaborate tomorrow. The next few words. Shari Abba Yoinek Mimazala. This is a quote from the Zohar. Abba derives its nourishment, Abba's Chachma, from Mazel. Now, Mazel means something which drips down in a very small way. P'chinasaides bilvad. Metaphorically, the idea of hairs. And we'll explain this tomorrow. This is a big subject in Kabbalah and Chassidus. The hairs, the beard, there's the hairs of the beard, which are holy. And then there's the hairs of the head, which are not holy, which is why we cut them off. Yud Gimel Tikunei Dikna, the 13 parts of the beard, which comes from the Pnimius, that's holy. There's unholy hair, there's holy hair. We'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. What he wants to bring out is, what you're getting right now is, that even Chachma is a result of, like a hair, literally a hair expression, this minute expression of Elikus. Again, let's remember where he's all going with all of this. After having explained the Holy Shtalshalos and reduced it really for what it really is expressing of God himself, then Yehesh Meir Abba, through Yehesh Meir Abba, through Tshuva and so on, is Mamshech, the Shmeir Abba, into all of Shtalshalos in Elam Haz. The most ultimate revolution. And that's the whole Kavanah. To be continued in Mitzvah tomorrow.
Can I just ask like a rudimentary question? My question is kind of, what's the point of all of this? That we get, we'll never really understand this, obviously. It's to increase our imuna in what we do, because we're walking kind of blindly, so to speak. Like we won't ever truly understand and feel, but at least we know that we're a part of something, that Hashem wants us to be this partner. Like what's the bottom line that all of Chassidus keeps on teaching us, the whole seder of everything.
Bottom line is to appreciate what you do with your mitzvah. And with your mitzvah, you connect to God himself. And that's a very simple statement. To Atzmos, to the Shmei Rabbah. What Chassidus wants us is to understand to the degree that we can and internalize and appreciate the relationship with God, the connection that we forge through mitzvahs, and particularly through Iskafia and Tshuva, which is the story here in the incident of the spies. So with greater and greater nuance and appreciation and understanding, it's all for one thing. To appreciate and therefore to motivate us to want to do the avodah, realizing what we're accomplishing, how close to God we're becoming, how deeply we're touching him, how deeply we are fulfilling him, how deeply we are fulfilling him in the performance of mitzvahs. Who's the him? So we get deeper and deeper appreciation of the him by contrasting the him to the incredible creation that he's produced and how he's infinitely beyond that. So the more this is the whole, before creation, how we described the malachim, the seraphim, and the chayis, and and their awesome praise of God. The basic objective is that here God is being extolled and praised by these extraordinary creatures, which we learn about and understand, and yet his true essence, his true self is truly moved and connected. The next bracha before the Shema, it's you and I in the nitty-gritty details of our life. We are connecting to Atzmos and Mohos, bringing him into our lives, into the world, and forging the most intimate connection, fulfilling his deepest desire, a desire rooted in Atzmos itself. And to appreciate that with greater and greater nuance and greater texture, and to see that in all of creation, in every story, that's the whole point of Chassidus.